growth show where we hold candid conversations with fascinating individuals from all walks of life to learn about their passions, their successes, failures, lessons learned, and how they apply personal growth to their lives. As always, we will end the conversation with key takeaways that we can all implement to better ourselves and the lives of those around us. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and good buddy, Sammy. What's up, Sammy?
Greg, I think we have one heck of a show for the audience tonight in our community. It's one of those topics that just keeps bubbling up. You may hear a little bit more about it, and man, do we have an awesome guest today. And I want to introduce Adam Smith. Adam is a native of North Texas, and he is an entrepreneur. He is also a digital expert and an educator who graduated from Embry Riddle University with a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Studies. In 2007, he co-founded TeacherTube.com, an online education platform community that provides a safe and educationally focused venue that teachers, schools, and home learners can use. So under that leadership of Adams, the publicly traded company Salem Media Group acquired TeacherTube in September of 2017. And at the time of the acquisition, TeacherTube had over 2 million registered educators with over 12 million monthly unique views to the site. Wow. So with all that, after the acquisition, Adam continued his passion for technology and education by helping schools and startups to large corporations with online training, branding, content marketing, and social media management. I am super pumped about this conversation because I know personally, Adam and I are very aligned on a lot of things that we talk about, but also Adam's just a great guy, a salt of the earth human, always willing to help and do more. So with that great intro, Adam, how's it going tonight?
Good. Awesome. Thank you guys for letting me be here, and excited to talk about some topics that I'm passionate about. So very excited to get started.
So one of the things that we wanted to do first is in your bio, you talk about being an entrepreneur, and that's kind of first and foremost. So we want to start with that too. So we want to ask the very first question is, as an entrepreneur who has a variety of interests, which we'll get into all of those too, what are some of the ways you prioritize your efforts?
I think it all started when I was a younger age. My brother and I are 10 years apart, and my father, he actually retired at an early age, and he was fortunate enough. He worked for, it was Otis Engineering at the time, and they got bought out by Halliburton. He was just a worker, but he worked there for like 20 years. So he was there for a long time. And that's when he became an entrepreneur. He bought a mobile station in Gunner, Texas. And so we lived in Gunner, Texas for most of my childhood before we moved to McKinney. But he was always hands-on. He was that mechanic. He was that, the old guy that was putting the rigs together and things like that. And so his passion was, fixing cars, and small town. It was great. But one thing that I took away from that was, he got to go to my games. I played sports. We got to go on vacation, and I always thought in the back of my mind, I was like, I want to do that. What is that? I didn't know it until in my mid-20s what actually entrepreneurship was. But whatever that was, I wanted to do. I really didn't use the term entrepreneurship, but I wanted to do that. And so, of course, my brother and I, we've always been thinking of something. And I think I could relate back into my college days. When my dad did retire, this was my first gig. And I don't think I've ever told you guys this, but my first gig was Wo Golf. I had an online WO Golf website. And I was ordering parts, and my dad, again, being hands-on, and my mom at the time worked at the Frisco post office doing passports. And so here's the dynamic that I fell into. So a lot of my life, there's been luck, knock on wood. So here's the dynamic. So I had this idea of putting together some, selling golf clubs and basically knock off golf clubs. And being in Embry Riddle, and being in Florida, I thought this is a great opportunity. And at the time, that's when eBay started to kick off. And if you guys remember, Yahoo auctions were kicking off. And so what I was doing was I sent my dad, he did like a $20 course at Golfsmith. and I was ordering parts, sending it to him from Florida here in, in McKinney, Texas. He was putting them together in the shed because he loved, again, hands-on.
Oh, yeah.
My mom would go to work and ship them off. So I would sell them on the auction, and my dad would put it together. It would be rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And until this day, it's so funny. And I feel bad about it, but of course, that was my grocery money, basically my beer money for college, right? And till this day, I felt bad, but I never paid them anything. So I felt bad, but it was a great dynamic. But that was the first instinct of really entrepreneurship, and where I learned about newsletters and, and marketing, because I was able to develop a list of, all, these golfers and people who, because we did drivers, like knockoff drivers, like the drivers with the huge heads. I would make them for about $15 and we'd sell them for $99. It was great. But that was when auctions came up. But that was really the first instinct. And, and then obviously right after college that's when my brother, who was at the time was a principal, he ran into this problem, and that led to TeacherTube. And that problem was they were redesigning their newsroom for their kids, and they were trying to mirror it as best as possible of what Victory Park Channel 8 was doing in their little setup. And he said, you know what, I'm going to dual purpose this room to not only let the journalism kids use it, but I also want to capture my best and brightest teachers. I've got some that are retiring that are really good, and I want to get them on video. I've got some new teachers that need to see that video, and get better. So they started accumulating these videos, and he said, hey, we got a couple hundred videos, and I want them to see it at home. How do we do that? Because they have to watch the video. Then was basically the local intranet. Right. And so they would have to wait to get on their school computer and watch the video. And then it became a problem of how do we search for these videos? And so he called me up and said, Adam, could you help me out? Well, I knew during that time, this was 2006. And in 2005, I remember just being in tune with technology. That was when YouTube pivoted from a dating site to what we know it is today. And it's so funny, if you go back on the Wayback Machine, 2004, 2005, the homepage of YouTube was, are you female or male? And basically what you would do, you would click male, upload your video, and wait basically 24 hours for them to upload the video on the back. But I knew on the back end, what they figured out was how to compress video and to view it online. To stream it basically, to much faster, but 24 hours, then that was really good back then, And so I knew about that. So long story short, I found some open source coding. There was people doing some project, and it was just open source. And so I took it, recoded it. I said, I think we've got something here, try this. And I'll be honest with you guys, didn't know what we were doing, and we came up with the idea of TeacherTube. I ended up buying TeacherTube.net. We had .net at the time, and I said, hey, use this. They're going to be able to log in, upload their videos, put title, as what we see today, title, description, and tags, and they could put it into a category. That way they can search it better. And they had an internal PHP search engine, right? And I said, use this. It should work. I've kind of put the lipstick on the pig and made it like a website, and it was just very raw. And lo and behold, again, not knowing what we were doing, was that it was public, and I didn't know any better. It was out there. It was on TeacherTube.net, and somehow some in the educational blogosphere got a hold of it, and they were like, yes, this is exactly what we need. Well, and of course, the help of the growth of YouTube too, as well, because the kids, the teachers are going on there, and in lieu of, they were having an issue because they were getting their kids to get on YouTube, and all of a sudden there was like a Nicki Minaj, or back then it was like MC Hammer or something, right? Showing our age, but they would get distracted. So we created a perfect environment, a community, to ultimately to close the gap for teachers, to engage students, because This is that race of technology, because students were used to video. They were used to YouTube. And teachers, they were kind of behind a little bit. So they were able to engage them with these intriguing videos and things like that. Well, lo and behold, one weekend, we had these 10 teachers that were basically using it with my brother in their school. And I just remember one weekend I was refreshing the back end, and it was just, 200, 300, 400. It was like, I was like, who are these? It was like, LA County schools, Louisiana Department of Education, all these started to come in. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And literally I sat there and clicked for about 8 hours, and we got up to like 16,000 people in one weekend.
Wow.
And it was just like, oh my gosh. And then they were loading videos. Well, what happened was his teachers were put these videos on TeacherTube, and they were great examples. And these other teachers were like, yes, this is exactly what we need to do. So then they started to, create their own videos. And lo and behold, that weekend, I just remember I called my brother. I was like, we've got something here,
Yeah.
And I said, the first thing we needed to go do is go buy the .com. You gotta go make ourselves official. It's like the check mark on Twitter, right? You're
Right.
verified, right?
Yeah.
And so the story within the story here is I ended up buying TeacherTube.com for $55 on eBay. But there's a story behind it from the beginning to the end. So I ended up buying it from this guy who had this long list of domains. And he was like, hey, I'm retiring. I need to get rid of these. And I told him, I was like, I remember emailing you, within the eBay, basically it's a DM. I said, I just want TeacherTube.com. I'll pay you $55 just for TeacherTube.com, because not going to get rid of all of them. And he goes, you got to take my whole account. And so I was like, okay, I'll take it. And so I ended up buying it for $55, but it came with like 100 domains.
Wow.
And they were just random domains. And literally I didn't even use them. I just wanted that one. Well,
please tell me one was like Facebook.com.
I know, right? I wish. I did go back and audit, and I was like, but there was some random, long, 3-word domains, except for TeacherTube. It was the best one. And there was a couple of other tubes that were just really irrelevant. But a funny story with that is, like, when we got acquired, we gave over, our accounts, and we had to go through our audit of everything that we owned. And it was so funny. I remember meeting with their tech department, and they were like, Adam, let's look at your, where are you housing your name server? I was like, yeah, it was with GoDaddy. Let's go take a look. And he was like, why do you have 101 domains in here? I was like, well, let me tell you this story. So anyway, so then the story began. But great. I mean, it was really awesome. We really matured as a company, and I'll be honest with you, as an entrepreneur, we, again, knowing what we didn't know, we talk about growth mindset. We just learned from it. We made a lot of mistakes. And I'll never forget, there was an article in Inc. And it really drove us. And I gave it to my brother, and it really set the tone for us of how we could grow. And I'll never forget, it was on a cover of Inc. And it was the creator of Friendster. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that, because they had the server issues. We had the server issues because we grew so fast, right? And we were like, when we had this little internal voice in our head, don't become a Friendster. Don't become a Friendster. Because literally what happened was, they tried to beef up they couldn't catch up with the growth. And what happened was Facebook came in, and then, it's Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But people don't know what Friendster is, and so that really drove us. So we really beefed up, and probably in our year 3 on the back end, we finally got to a point where we were 2 to 3 years ahead, to capture that growth. And it really helped us, because, from that 16,000, within, literally with that year, we had 350,000. And of course, by, 2010, actually 2009, we hit our first million users. And then we just kept growing from there. And so it was a great ride. It was definitely a great ride.
Adam, there was two things that you said that I'd like for you to expand upon just a little bit. The first one you talked about is you mentioned that your brother came to you and said, hey, we have a problem. And when you read about businesses, there's so many folks that go into business with something they enjoy doing or they want to do, but they've missed that necessary step of identifying, is there really a problem to solve, right? And then you talked about how when you guys first started, you really didn't know what you were doing, but you were doing it anyway. I'd love for you to talk to me a little bit more about when your brother came to you with this and said, look, we've got a problem. How much did that resonate with you? What in your mind led you to believe, hey, this is a problem that I see the effort we put into this can really make a big impact and help people? And then two, especially with people listening to this show that may have identified problems, but they're like, I really don't know exactly what to do. Share a little bit of that process of how you guys got started down that road in something brand new.
And again, I think the dynamic of that, here's my brother 10 years apart. I just got out of college. And so I knew about this tech, right? And here he was, at the time, a 10-year veteran and, he was a principal at the time. And so there was this gap. And talk about being early, I think it was just by happenstance. And so I'm not for sure if we were able to act on it, if it wasn't my brother, because we were able to talk back and forth, right? And so what I mean by that is that here he was with an age-old problem that was ready to take the risk, and then here I was, kind of that digital native, kind of meshing this two together. And so it was a great dynamic, in regards to that. And so he had this problem, and just by happenstance, I had a solution that we were there first, right? And so we just acted on it. And again, I think we were lucky. Sure, there was others that we saw out there, but we just kept going, right? And we just kept pushing and kept pushing, and so I think definitely, and we had a purpose, and I think that's so important too, because that's why I love education and technology, because you're helping kids, you're helping adults, right? Even adults in professional education. And so that's why I love technology in this space, because it's like an automatic built-in purpose. When you build something, when you build a course, a learning management system, or if you build, like a TeacherTube that provides video for people in a safe environment, you're helping somebody. So it's like you get that good balance, which is really great. And so that was really, that was really good. But more importantly, what to hopefully I'm answering your question. Besides the purpose, and I go back to that, is that I think anybody out there is always have that mission, belief, and vision statement. Have that in place and always go back to it. I don't know why. Okay, it's a great example of this is that I don't know how many times we went back to that. Does that fit our belief system? Does that fit our vision? And does this fit our mission? And sure, you can intertwine it, or adjust to it just based on times and things like that. But we did that so much. Great example of this, of a failure of ours, was I remember in 2012, we started to get a lot, and we started getting a lot of online colleges, and we started seeing them, with these learning management systems. And even our data told us that, hey, a lot of teachers are starting to put our videos in learning management systems. And so we thought, why don't we build our own learning management system? All these videos are going in there. We're trying to see this little trend. So we pivoted in 2012. And, it was kind of in our heyday. We hired a bunch of teachers. We hired some really good, our first big staff at that time, and some retired teachers. It failed. And what we realized was we're a tube site. We do video, and we do video really good. We need to stick with it. And, but we were all excited and we got comfortable. And so here we were, we were making really good money. I was a full-time. Jason, my brother, who was a superintendent, was now on board, full-time. And we had this small staff. And so we really good. And we got complacent and thought, you know what, we can pretty much do anything. Let's go be a learning management system and see if we can pivot and see what happens. Didn't work. And we realized, after we switched back to a video site and kind of readjusted ourselves and rebalanced back where we needed to be, that there's our answer right there. We're a safe environment for teachers, students, and home learners. And, we're a video site. We're a video community. And so we realized that, right off the bat that, stick to what we do best, because there is so much around just even something small that you can branch off and do multiple things.
Sam, I want to jump in with just a comment before your next question, but Adam, it's refreshingly ironic that you just shared that story. I'm actually working on a blog right now that's based on a quote that I absolutely love that talks about, don't attach yourself to a person, company, or organization. Attach yourself to a mission, purpose, or calling.
Yes.
And when you truly spend the time to do that, it really does turn out to be that Northern Star that really helps you know where you're going. And it really serves as that checks and balance in terms of when you have opportunities that come your way, it gives you that opportunity to understand, hey, is this really where we're going? Is this where we're aligned? So it's ironic you mentioned that, again, because that's a blog that I'm working on currently at the moment.
It's so true. It's so true. I agree with that. I agree 100% with what you just said. Absolutely.
When you say, like, I think it's maybe intuitive to people that are like personal development type people, like myself and Greg, and even you as well, right? With that growth mindset, you mentioned it earlier, but where did that come from, having that kind of mindset and that understanding when you were talking about creating a vision and mission statement? Because it's true, right? Every company you go and work for, they have a vision, a mission statement, right? But how many people do you talk to that have that exact same thing, right? That they can point to their vision and mission statement. Where did that come from for you and your brother?
We kept, really, I give credit to my brother, because he was like, okay, does this, every decision that we make, because it was easy for us to make decisions between us, because anything tech was me, anything education, it was him. I didn't touch it, and I just stay in your lane, bro type attitude. Right. And so, but we kept referring back because we started getting into, especially when we started hiring people, besides ourselves, we had to make some calculated decisions and not only think about, short term, but, long term. We now have responsibility of people who have families, who have kids, who need to put food on the table. How do we prolong that as a long, and so, that was really kind of we got to grow up, and here it is, and so, but ultimately, and a lot of people, I agree with you, Sammy, people know it, they see it on walls, but how do they use it? And I think we figured out how to use it. I'll be honest with you, we did adjust, every once in a while, because we started referring back to it over and over and over again. And so, and again, it kind of boiled down to, ultimately figuring out the summary of who we are. Again, going back to, we were a video site, we were an educational video site. And so we would say, hey, should we add blogs to our site? No. Okay, we're a video site. Is that going to help the video portion of our site? No. And we move on, and so going back to my learning management, where we kind of failed, did that help our video? No, we've realized, what, that was kind of a supplement to what we do best. Go let somebody else, their vision and mission and vision, belief statements are create the best blog or create the best learning management system. Let us do video really well. And I think people want to do a lot of things like we did. We wanted to try to just kind of take over the world in regards to, but sometimes you have to take a step back and just do what you do really well, and until you realize you've exhausted all of your options. But I guarantee you, once you get almost to that core of those options, when you exhausted, as a business in a for-profit, you probably made some really good decisions financially too, as well, for the company. So
absolutely.
Well, one of the things that, Adam, I'm curious about is, how did you balance doing what you do well with innovation? and understanding, hey, how do we continue to grow and make this better, make this a product, or make this a service that more people are going to be attracted to. I know you mentioned the idea of like, well, do we do a blog? Do we do this? Do we do that? But we went back to the kind of the core, no, we're a video site, which I love that, because again, do what you do well, but how do you balance that with saying, okay, but how do we then grow and innovate and evolve to take it to the next level? How does that look?
We were small enough that we could be nimble. And what I mean by that is that us, even changing back to a learning management system, and we only did it for about 4 or 5 months and then switched back to a video site, didn't hurt us, didn't hurt us like where we just, completely, lost the site. But, saying that we were small enough and nimble to take risks. And that was important for us because, I think for me, and my attitude on that is kind of that baseball analogy, is, hey, you go 1 for 3 for the day, it's a 333 batting average. That's really good, right? So it's Hall of Famer, right? And I think I told you guys this. And so we were willing to take those risks. And you know what? You fell twice. You didn't get a hit twice, but you hit, 1 base hit. And that's really good. And so, I think we were willing to take risk. I think as we matured, as the company grew, we started taking calculated risks, and to figure out who we are, and really started honing in on what we do best. And so, again, you got to lay it out there sometimes. And even if it's not, even if you're not to the point where you're calculated, why not just test it? Granted, don't make stupid decisions, right? Financially, of just throwing everything in the house in, but, really start taking those decisions and test those waters. I think a great example of that is when we hit our first plateau. And 2012, 2013, and we didn't utilize social media like we should. And I said, you know what? We went through 3 different marketing companies, which one of them, each of them did something really well, like a newsletter. One of them did social really good. One did this good. And I said, you know what? We really need to get into social. So I remember, we spent a whole week, me and my sysadmins figured out how to automate a bunch of things. And we said, we're going to get on Facebook. We're going to get on Twitter. We're going to float some highlights on YouTube even, to start driving traffic. And lo and behold, to talk about taking risk and testing, these are small, but you got to take those small ones to take those large leaps. One of our later social platforms was Pinterest. And as crazy as it may sound, we grew faster using Pinterest, being on Pinterest, having a presence on Pinterest, than all these Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube combined, believe it or not. But what we found out was we had to be everywhere, and we had to take those risks, and just to see what happens.
What was it about Pinterest that you think really drove that traffic?
Teachers. Female teachers.
Okay.
So they loved arts and craft. They loved to fix up their home. And so as they were looking, at different things, and they started, Pinterest got really good, organizing their groups and things like that. All of a sudden, we, then they started they started finding videos just by, so we started doing DIY videos. We started doing, how to fix your curtain videos, some of our original content. And what happened was that original content sort of started bringing some of these Pinterest teachers to create their own videos of how to do this in your classroom, how to create, these posters, how to create, a reward system and things like that. And so it all kind of worked together. But we had to be everywhere. And again, those are kind of low calculated risks, but you just have to, you have to find it. And with this technology, especially new technology, and try to get on there first, as much as possible, and, have a presence there. So,
you talk a lot about that way, and there's a whole kind of thread that you've been talking about since the very start, which I love, is that thread of like understanding where you are, being first, like starting to you talk about being a digital native, right? And that's what I am as well. And so I'm really excited that, and I think this is a good point in the conversation that we can kind of link into where you are today, right? So linking that where we are being first, there's the prime opportunity for stuff that you and I have talked about here recently,
Sure.
and to get other people excited about, but it's a polarizing topic, but it's cryptocurrency.
Yes.
And so, and I know, like, I can tell you this much, like, I'm excited about this. So like, I can't wait to like, just like let you go on this too. But the whole thing about cryptocurrency, right, is a polarizing topic. There's people, that financial advisors, that are saying, don't get into this, do get into this. If you're having this, if you're not in this now, you'll never be in this later, yada, all that kind of stuff too. So I think we want to get like, just from and Greg, chime in here shortly too, but from a understanding that our audience may not be someone first, right? Or they may be very hesitant, or they're told by somebody, don't get in this, right? I want to just understand what you know about crypto, what you know about the investment side of things, and then kind of give us some feedback on your thoughts on the platform.
And to piggyback on Sammy a little bit, I think Sammy brought up a good point where I think people listening to this show are going to fall into different buckets. Some people are very familiar with crypto. Others, like myself, think they have a little bit of understanding of what really it's all about. And then you've got people that are really, they've heard the word, they've heard people talking about it. It's kind of a buzz topic. And so, yeah, Adam, to piggyback on what Sammy said, would love to learn your thoughts about it, but maybe give us just the crypto 101 real quick of just really what it is, and maybe how you kind of got into it.
It's quite interesting how I got into it. So I, in 2019, I was kind of looking at, so let me back up. So I, at the very end of TeacherTube, because guys, I don't know how to understand this, but when we got acquired, I remember in September, well, in November, well, actually September was August 31st was the last day at TeacherTube. And there it was at September 1. It was the weirdest feeling ever, because I was like, okay, I didn't even think about what am I going to do, because we had all these audits and all this other stuff. And I was just like, what am I going to do? What am I doing here? And so it really kind of spanned on, how do I get my financials in order, right? Because here we just got acquired. Sure, we had this big, huge bucket. How do I get my personal life in order in regards to financially? Because fortunately enough, we did, and that was important for me. And I always had a dab into it. Now, granted, I am not an accountant, but it's one of those things where if I know somebody, I go ask help, structure me here, because I know it's important, and just let me go crazy over here, but keep me within a budget. Because we had a 401k, we had health insurance and things like that, part of TeacherTube. And that was really the first investment piece that I got interested in, like an IRA and things like that. We had a profit sharing, in TeacherTube. And so, which got me interested of, okay, I need some structure here, because, I started late. Having your own business, you don't think about that, saving up for 401k, things like that. So in 2019, so this is, literally this was 2 years in. And of course I was doing some consulting and kind of keeping up with it. And 2019, I remember when Robinhood came out, and I remember buying Dogecoin in 2019. And I remember, anything I say about, investing in crypto, again, I have to say the disclaimer, this is for educational purposes only, don't follow me here. But, so I bought $1,000 worth of Dogecoin. I remember it was like 3 million, it was like almost, I forgot what the time, it was like 3 million coins or something like that, or something crazy. It was really, really low at the time. And I was just kind of dabbling into it, right? And I was really dabbling into it. Well, of course, back in November, or I think it was November, or it ended up, going up to like 75 cents or something like that. Well, I sold it like a week later, back in 2019, right? And I remember going back to my Robinhood and seeing, I was like, oh my gosh, there it was. But okay, what is this? Why did this thing go up? Why is Elon Musk talking about it? And who's all these other characters? What is it? I understand it's currency. I need to learn something. What is all this? And I think it really kind of ticked me off a little bit, because I was like, if I just left it in there, it would have been millions of dollars,
I was going to ask you, what would that translate into? So millions of dollars?
Yeah. So if you take, I think it went up to 75 cents. So you're looking at, I literally had 3 million, let's see, 0.75. 3 million times 0.75, it's $2.2 million off of $1,000 investment.
Adam,
right?
Breathe. Adam,
I
breathe.
know,
Adam,
right?
breathe.
So here I was, I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, I should have just left it in there, right? And of course, you think about, oh, this was just another stock, I should have just left it in there. And then I started doing this deep dive into crypto and what is cryptocurrency, and why is this such a harsh name? And then it just dawned on me, I started understanding, Bitcoin, their white paper is only 9 pages long, and like 3 pages of it is more of a diagram of how Bitcoin is essentially made through the blockchain. And then I said, okay, there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum. I understand what they want to do. I understand the investment piece, but what's this other piece that we're looking at? What is blockchain? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, this is in my arena, because, again, with TeacherTube, I kind of handled the servers, connect the CDNs and all this other stuff to make the videos go. And I thought, why have I not really paid attention to this? What is this? And, essentially it's a ledger. I mean, it's literally like a computing ledger of chains together. And so you have these permissioned, addresses that it's just in lieu of a human, writing down, or, that you have $1 and I have $1 and we can spend it. The blockchain basically computes it for you. So it's taking the human element out of this huge ledger. Then I thought, what else can it do? And then I realized, oh my gosh, you can pass files through this. You can pass, HIPAA compliant X-rays through blockchain. It's super secure because it has to go through multiple chains in multiple seconds, until it reaches its end destination. And I thought, wow, okay, this is very interesting. So, and then, what really dawned on me was how all these different coins, again, going back to what we were talking about, a purpose, the ones that are taking off even now, all have a purpose. And that purpose is they're utilizing blockchain other than a currency. Bitcoin is the currency. It is like the standard gold. It does really well because that's what it does really well. But I think what we found out recently, that it also has the Lightning Network built upon, Bitcoin, which Twitter is using, and it's part of that blockchain technology. You have Ethereum. We can balk on their gas prices, but they're creating NFTs. That are through that blockchain, that Ethereum chain itself. And so, so to kind of recap, I guess I was a little bit pissed off that I missed out on an opportunity there. I kind of regrouped and started looking into this. And then I went through these 3 different phases, and I could probably hit everybody who's watching this, all 3 of these phases. And, that first phase is, the currency side of cryptocurrency. And so I created this bot, let me back up. Let me start over here. So you're either a speculator, you're either a day trader, or you're an investor, right? And those 3 things. And talk about speculation. So I bought Doge on speculation, right? I bought it from the news. It was a buzz at one time, then it slowed down and went way, way down. I thought, I'm going to lose all this $100. I'm going to lose this $1,000. I need to take it out, right? So I was kind of that speculator. And then I regrouped, back in November-ish, and I said, okay, what's this other piece? And I thought, well, maybe I can create a bot, that could help me just, trade these coins, at a faster rate, maybe shave or whatever it may be, and just see what happens. And so kind of had a little, white paper trading bot, and then I threw a little bit on there. And so I became kind of that day trader, right? And got on Coinbase, was looking at it every day, making my moves and things like that, swapping them around. And that didn't kind of work out like I wanted it to. And then finally, after going through those different phases, I realized, this is kind of an investment. And what dawned on me, understanding blockchain, understanding how it's used as, basically understanding that it's a currency, understanding that it's a blockchain, understanding the technology behind all of this. And what really, ultimately dawned on me was that this reminded me of like late 1990s, early 2000s, like when the internet came about. And ultimately, it really just reminded me of that AOL moment that, started doing e-commerce, the eBay, the Yahoo auctions, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like back in the World Golf days that I was referring to. And, as this maturing, and it's funny because there was a stat, I don't have the exact numbers, but the growth back then was like 165 million people when, the growth of people, being on the internet, and the growth of blockchain and crypto is like almost like 165 billion. It's like this massive growth, coming to this industry itself and blockchain alone. So, I think there's a lot of, moving parts, around this technology that's so fascinating. I think we're just now touching it. And yet, sure, you could call it the wild, wild west, but what you're going to see in the next probably 3 years is that you're going to see these Amazons, these Netflix that pop up, that their technology is going to be blockchain. I think it's going to be a household name. And the reason why I say that is that we go back and look at Amazon, right? They perfected e-commerce. They bought shops online. Thank you, Toys R Us, right? And that was one of their first big players. And so, and Netflix did the same thing. They were like, funny story behind that. If you guys read, I forgot what the book is called, but they were in McKinney, Texas. Blockbuster was in McKinney, Texas.
Yeah.
And if you guys know the story about them going to McKinney, and they said, hey, we just want to take on your online portion of Blockbuster and stream your movies. They're like, no, we make enough money off late fees. See you later. And then all of a sudden,
Blockbuster's out of business. Netflix is one of the biggest companies in the world.
Exactly. No, 100%. Yeah. So I think we're going to see, a lot of this. An interesting company that I talked with the other day. I'm working on a project with Bill Bennett, former Secretary of Education, and we're building around this U.S. history project. And one of the things that I was wanting to implement was, kind of certificates and rewards and things like that. There's a company in our backyard called Greenlight that does certificates on the blockchain on us through a smart contract. And what that means is that if a student is certified in something, it's now in this ledger, and now it's a permissioned ledger. And what I mean by a permissioned ledger is that they can open it up and close it anytime they want to. But whenever they open it up, they can open it up to employers. And so these employers can now look at, hey, they're certified in this and this. We need this, this, and this. They're a great hire. Let's hire them. So that's coming about. So this ledger is very fascinating. It's called, it's just blockchain itself. And it's very fascinating to me, in regards to understanding both ways. But what on the financial side, what people have to realize, especially with Bitcoin, besides the technology itself, can I share my screen? Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, let me see if you
Absolutely.
have permissions.
Okay.
Make sure that you can do this. Can you do it? Are you able to?
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
There you go. Just did it.
Okay. So on the investment side, we're talking about the investment part and taking out the blockchain itself. So this is Bitcoin stock to flow. I firmly believe this, and you guys need to take a look at this. People need to go down here, it's look into bitcoin.com, read the indicator overview, how to view the chart. And there's some truth behind some, in fact, all of this. So what the difference between a stock is that there's an infinite scale. If you go up or down, as many times as it wants to, and there's as many stocks you can buy as many times you want to. What's unique about specifically Bitcoin, they're only going to be mined 21 million coins.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's so attractive as a currency, because now it has value, right? And then you can basically give one Bitcoin and you can take one Bitcoin and vice versa. But what's interesting with this model is now we have this cap of 21 million, right? So now we have business logic of supply and demand. And so we look at these past, 10 years, 12 years, and we see this natural growth, almost like the S&P, right? And so, but what's happening is that it's this value, and where you see these little edges, Bitcoin is halved. And I'll talk about mining just for a real quick second, because I'm also mining too, which is, I love it. It's I get to tinker, right? But I'm mining coins that I get rewarded the same coin. For instance, like Cadena, I'm mining Cadena. So I get, roughly about 40 coins a day. And so I'm accumulating coins. That's what I want. That's my whole goal, is to accumulate as many coins as possible. And you could do that through mining, and which is great, which is phenomenal. But for this stock to flow model, like every time you see these little, plateaus, every time it rises up, it halves. So what that means is that there's just enough there, there's a that takes place. So there's less supply of the coin itself. And again, going back to supply and demand, it will naturally go up. And I think what people, initially see, and again, talking about news, being that speculator, being that day trader, those are short term. And yes, this is so volatile, it's very volatile. And if you're not smart, and calculated, yeah, sure, you do like what I did, lose on, Dogecoin. But when you look at this, it's a natural north, projection, right? And so, but it's all predicated on, again, the supply and demand of this, for instance, stock to flow model, right? It's going to go up and down. The market's going to make that do that, right? Transactions are going to make that do that. And it's going to go up and down daily. But over time, it's like real estate. It really is. And what I mean by real estate is that if you, bought, I'm from the area. If you bought, an acre in Frisco, Texas, back in the 80s for $6,000, now it's probably worth, $200,000, an acre, right? And so it's that hold, and no one really truly knows. But one thing that I can tell you with this is that, I highly recommend understanding this, especially for Bitcoin. This is a great article in, indicator, and the important part of all of this is that it is a stored value. Therefore, the less over time, the less, supplies being, allocated, the more valuable it's going to be. It's just like, you take something away over time, you only have one left, right?
So,
and so
I love the fact that you're pointing people to resources like this, because I think that, like we mentioned, also, like there's so many variables in what people are learning about right now, right? So there's people that have no idea what's going on, right? They've heard about it on the news. Maybe somebody's, one of their goofy friends said they invested in some type of crypto, right? Or whatever. I've got friends personally, I talk to some of my best friends. I'm like,
Yep.
I'm invested in cryptocurrency and these things. They're like, that'll never last and you're wasting your money, whatever.
Yeah.
But so maybe from an actionable tip standpoint, right? So where should people start? Where do you think is a good action item for people to at least begin to find the knowledge or to learn about the knowledge of investing or learning more about cryptocurrency?
That's great. And I think I probably got ahead of myself in regards to stock to flow, because it gets really detailed. What I highly suggest, and I'm not affiliated with Coinbase, but I highly suggest opening up a Coinbase account. And the only reason why I say this is that they have courses where you can earn crypto. So you don't have to invest or put your own money into. But what you get out of it is that you learn about certain coins and you can make a couple bucks. I mean, I think right now they're doing like $40 where you can go in and take these courses, and then, that $40 goes into these certain coins. Now it's diversified in regards, but during that time you get to learn, what these coins are and what their technology is. And they have great videos, and literally they're only probably 4 slides. I mean, it's real quick. Literally, you can do it on your phone, but they're really quick. And majority of them have videos. So they explain to you what the technology was about. And where it clicked on me in regards to blockchain, where I got really excited, was the Stellar coin. I currently don't have it in my portfolio, but it does make sense to me. So the XLM Stellar coin is like our Western Union. So what I'm saying is that you can start looking at this technology and start to see where blockchain can start to disrupt, right? And so just like Western Union, right? So the Stellar, you can send for, like if you had family in Mexico or if you had family in France, you could take your US $1, convert it to a Stellar, send it to your family in France, and have them convert it back to their own currency with minimal fees, like literally like maybe 10 cents. And if you go to a Western Union or you have to go pay, it's like, you're losing like 10%, 9% or 5%, it's something crazy like that. So, and that's what really, and I learned that through Coinbase. That's why I highly suggest in regards to, opening up that account, learn from them. And then, once you learn from those courses, you, again, it goes back into your portfolio, and just watch it and just see what happens, and just leave it in there and just kind of watch it, understand it, look at the news, and really kind of, understand the technologies and investing all in one.
You said two things there, Greg. I just have a comment, Greg. I'll let you ask a question. You said two things there that I think are very important that a lot of people don't fully understand about this, is that it's more than just, blockchain and cryptocurrency is more than just these coins. And that's what you hear a lot about. It's like, well, how many coin are you going to buy? Or how much is my coin worth? But what people need to realize is the fundamentals of what you've been talking about since the start is these are all technologies, these are all softwares, these are all platforms, these are all applications that are being built utilizing that base layer technology called the blockchain. So they're utilizing this technology to build upon the entire way. And then that's what I think a lot of people need to realize is whenever you read about the news, like, oh, well, this is going to be hot, that's going to be hot, or whatever it is from a coin-based perspective or a coined-based perspective, that they need to really understand that there's more to it, right? There's people that are building things on this. So I just I'm so glad you mentioned that, because so many people have no idea about that.
And I highly advise, and you'll hear the term meme coins. And if you don't know what meme coins, just quickly Google it. I highly recommend, and of course, I'm biased on meme coins anyway with my Dogecoin anyway,
Yeah.
but I highly recommend just stay away from them because that's not really what the blockchain is really, all about. There's no purpose. And I think, again, Doge is going to be a little bit different because they are trying to create some different, aspects of it. But more importantly, the great example now with Bitcoin, in regards to, sure, we naturally fit to the financial market, but now it's a Lightning network that Twitter is running off of, and so that's what I highly recommend. Again, to simplify it, think of it just like a ledger. Mm-hmm. And it's just this, John has $1 with a $1 wallet. Susie has $1 wallet. I'm just going to pass it through the blockchain. It's going to be verified. And so that's really what blockchain does. So like for instance, it's very secure. And what I mean by very secure is that like Bitcoin will have 5 different nodes. They're called nodes. So there's 5 little chains through the blockchain. And each time, each one of these nodes, a miner will have to verify. So what I mean by that is that John has a wallet. Okay, check. He has a verified active wallet. He wants to send it to Susie. And Susie, okay, Susie has an active wallet that can receive Bitcoin. Check. On to the next node. Then this node here carries over to the second node. So now they're stacked. Okay, did this pass the first node? This is where it gets interesting and unhackable, because now within that 0.5 seconds, these nodes start getting stacked, because you then, and what I mean by that is that it's verified. And by the time it's verified, they have to have hacked 0.001 second to get that node, to cross-check it. And so that's why blockchain is very secure in regards to the chain itself. But really, I mean, if you really simplify down of what can be disrupted using a ledger, like I think this Greenlight company is onto something in regards to certificates. We'll throw it into a smart chain or a smart contract, and we can house it, right? We can house our certificates, and then we can pass it through however we want to do it. The other thing is, of course, we heard about, NFTs, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's another topic that's really hot right now. So think about, what we know about NFTs is that, the art had a great conversation, Sammy, with our mutual friend, David. He told me about this story. There's this lady who developed this map for COVID, when COVID back in March, on basically using the Google API to detect trends through COVID. And ultimately, she kind of had the epiphany like me. She started using this technology and started running this data, and she started running into blockchain itself. Well, lo and behold, she created these trending COVID data points through the blockchain that ended up leading her in the idea of creating property contracts through NFTs. And so basically digitized contracts. I think I'm probably maybe going into good detail here, but here, let me try to explain this real quick. What that led to is that with the Vatican, believe it or not. So the Vatican has like millions of properties everywhere. And whenever someone dies, in their will, that says, hey, I'm going to give this to the Catholic Church, right? Well, they have no idea. They're backlogged so far that they have no idea, other than they have this will that says they own this property. And so you can imagine using blockchain, using smart contracts to basically, if say a will is in, one of these smart contracts, and when that person passes away, it's automatically activated into, basically the ownership passes hands back into the Catholic Church instantly, right? And so it gets fascinating how blockchain is being used, how it's utilized. That's just one example. And it's quite interesting in regards to where it's going and where it's headed.
So Adam, as an individual that is really just on the very beginning stages of learning about cryptocurrency and blockchain, I realize that a lot of what I've got to do is just personally educate myself. I've got to go to these resources. I've got to learn about all these different tools, all these different types of things. But what I'm really interested in asking you, as somebody that's in it right now, what gets you so excited about the future? So where do you see this whole cryptocurrency, blockchain? What do you think it looks like in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Again, I kind of go back to what I said about the early internet days, is that where I get excited is that you got to, again, I think the other stat is, we're still young in this phase of blockchain. And it's good to be ahead, so remember this conversation we're having, because I really and truly 3 to 5 years from now, it's going to be a norm. I think even my brother-in-law who's in the telecom, they're talking about blockchain. So I guess what I'm saying is that we're going to see this technology kind of like cloud was recently. And more importantly, what I mentioned about the internet itself and e-commerce, but where the cloud kind of helped, really speed up technology a little bit, most recently, I think what we're going to see is the same thing with blockchain. But what's interesting that's different from the cloud and, keeping it in our servers and, having that, is that this blockchain has a financial component to it, right? And so it not only has a financial component, but then it has, again, you can store files securely. You can invest into it. You can create the smart contracts. You can create ownership of owning through an NFT. And so there's all this, and we're just trying to figure out, what all can you do with this technology? And so ultimately what I highly recommend for anybody who's getting into it is really do what I did. If you're interested in investing, go on Coinbase. Go in there's literally, once you sign up, and of course you have to go through some verification, but go take their courses and you get paid for it. I mean, literally, I think, each course is like $5. Some of them are $10.
I can tell the audience that that's exactly where I started in my crypto investment education and actually investing is through Coinbase. And I did the exact same thing. They have free things. So I was just checking my wallet as we were talking, because I have, I think it's XLM, Stellar Lumens.
Yes.
And that's one of the ones that we were talking about. And that's really the only reason I have that is because I did their little class on it. And like,
of course, yeah.
What you can, and you can see here, but like, here's a class on it. So you just go to Coinbase, you make it, do the class. It tells you, you can earn $2 of this in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's literally 2 minutes. Yes.
I mean, you're sitting there bored and you want to educate yourself on something versus like just swipe for the 100th picture on Instagram.
Yeah.
Take 2 minutes, you earn $2. Like,
yep.
Easy.
Yeah. And the great thing about it is that you start learning that it's other than a currency and what its purpose. Like for the Stellar, it's like, oh my gosh, this is Western Union.
Yep.
This is where the technology in one way that's going to be disruptive, right? And again, a lot of people have not heard of Stellar or even using Stellar.
Right.
But again, that's how early we were, and I feel even late to the party. In regards to Bitcoin, looking at that chart back in 2007-ish, 2012 or whatever, but we're still early. There's still time. And I think that what's interesting, especially, in the investment piece and what a lot of people don't know, or probably do know or don't know, is that, we talk about regulation, right? Sure. I totally believe that there should be some regulation in this industry. But the great thing is we have a great SEC guidance, Greg Insler. He taught blockchain at MIT. So if that's not bullish on crypto or blockchain in general, then I don't know what is. So if he's the head of the SEC and he's teaching blockchain at MIT, we've got the right person in place in regards to if we're even talking about regulating or doing the right thing because he understands the technology itself.
All right.
So
Adam, I'm going to put you on the spot. So will our grandkids be paying for goods and services with a $20 bill, or will they be using cryptocurrency?
You know, it's funny that you say that. So my neighbor, who we're trying to figure out, you know, he's real big into it. He creates NFTs. Okay. He had a great example, and we were talking with this esports lawyer, kind of in a powwow group, and he had a great example, you know, in regards to, you know, and we were really talking about NFTs. He said, you know, you talk about a trading card. He's like, you've got people who love and talk about art. You know, and this is kind of an NFT talk. He says you have art. So you actually have like a physical thing. People like to hang it up on the wall, right? And they collect those and they're valuable. And he goes, then you have this millennial group that goes, okay, I like this, but I also like, you know, something digital too. You know, so you have this tween, and I kind of, you know, I'll kind of fit in that a little bit. You know, I like both, right? And so and he goes, then you have this group that's ahead of them that's going to be all digital. So you have this, you know, this older generation, this mid generation, and then you have this new generation coming in. So to answer your question, it's all going to be digital, because the reason why, it's easy. It's easier for them, right? And I think where it struggle and people struggle with it, it's that adapt to change. It's that blockbuster that we're afraid to adapt to change, right? It's that you know, here's change coming. Let's just taste it a little bit to see if we like it or not, instead of just being the bull and just saying, nope, it's not broke, you know, don't fix it. We're just going to stick to it, right?
And Greg, to kind of answer your point on that, I wanted to throw this out because this just dropped today. This is news that dropped today, is that PacSun, you know, you probably know them, the you know, this clothing company sells, like, you know, surfwear, whatever. I probably bought this shirt at some point in time, but they have now, and they're one of the many companies now that are they're going to start this year. If they didn't start right now, they're going to start taking payments via digital currency. And so, and the thing about it is too, like, think about it this way. How many people do you know today that still write checks for things? Yeah. Very few, right?
Very few.
You go back 10 years, yeah, you're still writing checks, right? You're still mailing checks, right? So move forward, right, of the generation that's right in front of us, right? Yeah, even, you know, I'm 40, so like, let's just have it, right? 20-year-olds. How many times do you see them going to an ATM and getting cash out of the ATM, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because what do? They tap their phone on the register and they paid for something, or they send you money via Venmo or Zelle, and there you go, they've paid you. So they don't really have the concept of this tangible stuff. So to walk into a PacSun, which has 600 locations nationwide, that to take that and just say like, oh, I'm just going to pay you with my phone because that's how I pay everything else. Cool. Bloop. There, I just gave you some money. Oh, it just happens to be tied up in Bitcoin or whatever it is. It's inevitable, right? It's the way of the check.
Well, and I like one that you talked about. So actually today in a business meeting that I was in, we had a speaker that talked about innovation. And one of the things that he talked about is it's got to be easy.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned that. That's when you look to see the future, the next 10, 20, 30 years, a lot of it is going to come down to just how seamless it is. And yeah, I think you, exactly. and Sam, what you just said really just nailed that point home.
You know, and it's funny that you say that, because coins that I'm investing into now are hard to get and you have to use a little bit of technology to get them. For instance, and I'll say it out loud again, no part of them, but K-Dana, I'm actually mining it as well, but it's hard to get. It's really hard to get because you have to go through this kind of technology hoop to get a wallet. It's not on Coinbase just yet and things like that, but you can go get it and things like that. You're exactly right. Like Coinbase, they've made it easy. They made it really easy to sign up but I think, and what's interesting, like what you just said in regards to payment and PayPal and things like that, what we got to understand, the reason why, you should pay attention to cryptocurrency is that it's decentralized.
Yes.
So just like Venmo, with zero fees passing back and forth, again, that's the tough part. And in that meeting with the, in my meeting with the esports lawyer who represents esports, players, and what he was trying to figure out, and he had a conversation, and he was in a meeting with the SEC and fraud, and, they were just trying to powwowing, again, at a conference, and they're just trying to figure out how to detect this. How do we tax this, and how do we prevent fraud for the common user and things like that? But it's decentralized, right? And so it's going to be a tough challenge. And again, granted, it's secure, and yes, there's going to be bad things that happen. But if you have this process, and once you get into it, it's super simple, right? Just like on Coinbase, they make it super secure, super simple. You have to have biometrics to log in, make sure you have to put it on there and things like that. And so they make it super simple. So I think more of that's going to happen. And right now in this space, it's hard. I think Coinbase has done it right. I think BlockFi has done it right. I think, there's some others out there that have done it right. But that time is coming, in regards to making it easier. Because here we have this technology that's decentralized, and especially like my children, who, like what you said, they just they make it easy. Well, their questions are going to be, well, why would I leave my money into a bank that only, a savings account that's 0.15% when I can throw it into BlockFi and get 8.25% per year? They'd be like, what? And so it's like, it's a no-brainer, right? And so if you think about it, it's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer, throw it in there, right? And so, but again, there's different ways to do that, and 8.25% is ridiculous. But that's the going rate for BlockFi, which is outstanding. And I use it. Again, I don't know what the disclaimer is or anything like that, but I think it's great. In fact, a lot of it, if you're, especially with that, there's things called stable coins. They're pegged to the dollar. So if you don't want to take that risk into, BTC or Ethereum going up and down, or it's going to drive you crazy, there's GUSD. It's pegged to the dollar. Literally, you put $1 in there and it earns 8.25% each year. It's phenomenal. It's great.
Yeah,
and the way they make, it's 1 for 1. It's 1 for 1. And the way they make money is that you're actually providing liquidity to their lenders. And that's the part that is being questioned for regulation. And there is some truth to that in regards to that. But anything like mining and anything, I'm going to throw out some terms here: proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of work is like Bitcoin. You have to mine it. It's always going to be mineable. And that means it needs a machine like I have out in my garage that mines coins. And a proof of stake
Adam,
is...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but talk a little bit about what does it mean to mine coins?
Yeah, let me do this. This is a great example. Let me see. Let me throw this up just a little bit.
I love, because like anyone that you watch, and I'll ask this question here a little bit about like watching people and learning from people, and I want to know who you learn from. But like, I watch shows on YouTube, right? They're like, let's go to this chart, and they just put the chart up on. And so I feel like I'm talking to one of those people on YouTube right now. We have our own chart show.
Yes. I should have saved it, but here's how I learned. Let me try to find this. In fact, I found it on Google Images, but it made total sense. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I know we're getting late, guys. Here it is. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen one more time here. Open in tab. How are we doing on time? Are we okay?
We're good. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this over to you. See if this is large enough. Gosh, that's wrong. Hang on, bear with me, because this will totally make sense to you once I pull this up.
You're listening to the Pursuit of Growth podcast as we discover everything you need to know about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and how to become a billionaire in the next 20 years.
Because I gave this to my father-in-law, and this is how he kind of started. And so I think this is a great example.
As you find it, what is mining? Can you give us that bullet point? What is mining definition?
Yeah. So a funny example is, do you guys remember the movie The Office?
Yep.
And they created that little code that takes 0.001 out of every transaction of an ATM machine.
Yep. That's
basically what it is. And it's not stealing. Of course, they were stealing in the movie. But what they're doing is that you're providing, remember Napster?
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember Napster? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Here's a great analogy. And I think it makes sense to me, and it's probably the wrong thing, but okay. So it's peer-to-peer, right? So if I had a music stored on my computer and then somebody else had it stored on their computer, but Sammy, you wanted to download it, it was using both of our computers to download it faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar. Okay. So that peer-to-peer, technology is there. And so what I mean by that is that when I do a transaction with a miner, I was part of those nodes. So I'm like a verifier. So if Sammy, you're sending it to Greg $1 and it goes through that one node, I'm one of those nodes, one of 5 nodes that go through, that verification. And once I verify it and it goes through all that node, and it was a complete transaction, and we got it all, everybody got a thumbs up. Each of those miners that verified each of those nodes, we get rewarded for 0.005 of whatever coin. It's a small amount, but you do 20 to 30,000 transactions a day, it starts to add up a little bit. You know what I mean? And then what you do, you get rewarded back into that coin. And I'm doing it now as an investment, because I'm like, okay, we got bills to pay. I got 3 kids. Where can I side hustle something and start investing on my own? So I thought, what's this mining? And so mining, basically, again, you get rewarded. And I started off with my gaming computer, and this is a whole nother topic, but you can mine with your GPU. You can actually mine with your computer. And essentially you're just part of that, like that Napster, you're part of the network. Mm-hmm. But once you are part of this network, and if, again, there's millions and millions of transactions that happens every minute, right? And so you get rewarded once you're a part of that verification node itself. And so
I love that, because that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think that they're literally going and like finding or processing, but it's using computational power to verify the transaction. And you're one of those verifiers, like you mentioned, and then you're just rewarded for some of your computing power. I mean, it's essentially, when you break it down, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, 100%. And so let me stop this clear. Let's see if we can see it. So this may not be clear enough, but it's kind of like my story that I said about, Sarah and John, right? So this is kind of the journey that Bitcoin takes whenever you're wanting to send somebody, say Bitcoin itself. So say Rob opens up a wallet. Say Rob requests to send 0.3 BTC Bitcoin to his friend Laura. Okay. So Rob opens his Bitcoin wallet. So say he created a Coinbase account and you have Bitcoin in there, and you can convert US dollar to Bitcoin. So if you put, in this case, 0.3 is actually a lot, but say you put $1 of Bitcoin from US dollar, you just buy Bitcoin. And so now Rob has Bitcoin. And so what Rob does is that he wants to send it to Laura, and Laura has her own wallet address. So once you own an address, once you open up a wallet, you have this long address. So think of it like a website, right? That's probably a bad example, but think of it like something, or your email. The email is a lot better. think of it like, so it's your personal email, right? But you have a send wallet and you have a receive wallet. So in this case, Rob is wanting to subtract send to Laura 0.3 BTC. So Laura gives her receive address and to make that transaction. So he fills in the amount, and there's usually a fee, like Coinbase will have a fee, a small fee. They send it to the user, and here's where the machines comes in. So the wallet signs a transaction, uses Rob private key. So what I mean by that, this is where the security actually starts. So once he sends the BTC to Laura, then this is where the privacy of blockchain starts. His wallet has a certain key. And what's interesting about blockchain is, like for Coinbase, they make it easy. It turns the key, it opens it up, and then it closes once it passes through. Okay. What's interesting about like smart contracts and things like that, and a lot of businesses are doing this, especially with executives, they all have to turn the key at the same time. And so what I mean by that is that I have to go in and say, yes, accept, and 3 others have to accept it too. So to open up something, right, in the smart chain. So once the transaction is using Rob's private key, the transaction is propagated and validated by the network nodes. So those are those nodes I'm talking about in the blockchain. Miners include the transaction in the next block to be mined. And again, that's where the machines essentially approve each transaction, because they check, okay, Rob has a valid wallet, Laura has a valid wallet, Rob's sending and Laura can receive, boom, let's make this transaction. And so again, that peer-to-peer, every transaction, in lieu of the bank getting, $3 every transaction, because the miners are actually getting that. And it's a small fractional amount. And what's cool about, like Stellar, is that sure, that miner that maybe, we get like 0.001, it's probably less than a cent. You don't ever see that. So what I'm saying is that if you send $1, you're usually going to get $1, right? Unless there's some extra fees in that, but you will never see it. So like miners typically get less than a cent, but they'll do thousands of transactions a day, if you will. So once that is mined, mining is the computational process of calculating a certain hash. So all these are hash data. So it's super, super secure. And so once it passes through mining, new Bitcoins are created. The miner who solves the proof of work, which is mining, propagates a new block to the network. So then it's a new node in the network itself. The nodes verify the result and propagate the block. That's when it's verified. So once the nodes are stacked together, then a new, basically Bitcoin, that's that 21 million that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. That won't happen probably till 2054. I forgot what it was, but it's going to take a while for it to take place. The nodes verify result and propagated the block. And what I mean by that, and people get confused, is like, well, it's only 18 to 1,000. There's more than 1 million transactions a day, and there's mining, but we're talking about Bitcoins at $55,000, right? So what that means is people are doing these micro transactions of 0.001 Bitcoin. So it's got to fill that bucket up to make it 1 Bitcoin. So it's a lot of time to make that happen. So once it reaches, Laura sees the first confirmation, the new confirmations appear with each new block is created. So basically it takes this journey of Rob sending it. So again, the best way to think about it is like sending a secure email, but you're paying somebody through it. Does that make sense? I know that's a lot, but basically you're sending this email that's getting mined and verified that I have $1, she has a wallet that can set my $1. It's verified through the blockchain, and then she receives it. And so what the difference is that creates that decentralization. So again, miners are verifying this, and I have no idea. No miner has any idea this is hash data. I don't know who's making these transactions, but it just gives you, you get rewards from it. from my.
Adam, you ask if it makes sense. I use this analogy. As you explained it, it makes sense. If you were to say, now, Greg, tell me back what you heard, it would be kind of like when I was in 10th grade and I was in algebra, and they were like, when I watched them do it on the board, I was like, that makes perfect sense. And then the test came, and I was like, what had happened was 2 times 2 is still 4, right? Question mark.
Well, and this is good for me because I'm trying to simplify and, trying to simplify it down as best as possible because it is confusing because there's so many moving parts, right?
Well, I think it's confusing because it's so new. And
it is so new.
You did a really good job of I love the graph you just showed because it really did make a lot of sense so I could follow you. And everything made sense what you were talking about. But like anything that matters in life, you see it. Now it's my time to go now and learn it and really put some effort into understanding it. So what you shared was really, really helpful.
No, absolutely. No, 100%. And that's why I highly recommend to start with these courses, even just doing these quick Google searches of, what is Bitcoin? How does Bitcoin work? Watch YouTube. I mean, we have this access to all this knowledge, online that you'll find the answer. There is enough. And I found it. You can find it. And what's great about this is that you start stacking. Okay, I figured out what Bitcoin is. I understand what it's doing. Now I'm going to go take these courses. Okay, Stellar, what's Stellar? Okay, it does that. And then you start stacking your knowledge over and over. And then by the time, you get it, it's you get to a point where you really understand it.
And I think it's still the early days. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, I feel late to the party. You feel late to the party, right? But other people are just now getting into it too.
I'm like, there's a party?
Yeah.
I know, right?
Where's the party at?
Yeah. And so but that's the thing. It's like people, I talk to people all the time who are just now getting into it, right? They're just now learning about it. They've heard about it on the news or it's become cycles. I did want to ask you, what is it or who do you have that you follow? Are there 1 to 2 names of people that people could easily follow? I know I've got some people and I'll throw it out there for other people to learn too, but I'd love to know who you have and who you learned from.
Yeah, so there was Bankless. Bankless is one. I know a guy on YouTube that does a really good job and he's always talking. I follow Gary Vee obviously for NFTs. I think he launched Candy today, which is really cool with the MLB and things like that, especially on the NFT market. There is Greg, let's see, CNBC. There was bear with me. Oh gosh, they just did an article.
As you find that, I'll tell people too.
Yeah, share some of your people, Shandy.
Yeah, so 2 people that I really enjoy. They just make it easy to digest and break down. His name is Lark Davis, Lark Davis on YouTube. Fantastic individual, does videos daily, and they're about 20 minutes tops. Yes. And it's very regimented. It's tell you the charts, kind of look at the charts, and then you kind of say here's his speculative news, and then here's actual news that he's culled from Twitter or he's culled from news reports, whatever. The other side of that is there's a community called Crypto Banter. They're gaining a lot of popularity, but they're a little bit different. They're all about building a community, right? So they've got their slang and their slogans and their giveaways and all this kind of stuff. And really, I enjoy it from a programmatic standpoint, but I think they could really condense it down to about 20 minutes and you would get the knowledge that you need. But there's a ton of insight in there too. And again, just like with any other show, right? It's their flavor, it's their spin, it's their speculation. And that's what a lot of people need to know. Don't take it as gospel. You need to do your own research. But those are 2 people that I really, really find a lot of value in.
Yeah. So the guy I was thinking of is Graham Stevens. Now I just stumbled upon him. They did a great article if you guys get a chance, and I highly recommend. CNBC has a section on where is it? It's basically kind of like entrepreneurial section on there. And so he basically started creating videos on YouTube. He's making $6 million a year. And what he's
We make
doing,
videos on YouTube.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, Millennial Money. So they've got this series out called Millennial Money, and it's really interesting in regards to that, because it's really good for, kind of like me and you, Sammy, in the 40s, really to see what are the younger people thinking of, right? And what are they doing, financially and things like that. So, it's really interesting. So he's the other one. And I'll be honest with you, it's so new, it's been so sporadic, and those are really kind of the top ones of investing. And but like how I learned how BlockFi works, there was like multiple people. What's a good portfolio to start off with, and things like that. But literally it did take that time just to kind of learn, and that we kept talking about earning that, $40, that allowed you to, it's kind of like your WinStar money, right? Yeah. It's kind of like when you show up and there's like a little reward. So you get to play around with it. So it's like, it's house money that you can really, learn, hey, I'm really interested in this coin that I learned about. It's tradable. Just throw, put it in there. It's at $40. It's, what do you have to lose? In regards to that. So, but it's really interesting. And I'll tell you one thing, guys, that's really helped me is just really getting financially stable of how off, and it helps your businesses too as well. And what I mean by that is that, thinking like an investor, is so key in all of this, is because, okay, you got to think long-term, right? And I think I think a lot of us get into this realm that, sure, you have to think short-term and make these decisions that are short-term, but you also have to think about how's that going to affect long-term too as well. And I think investing, it's so long-term, and you start seeing these guys who ultimately have these large assets like cars, even gold or real estate. You start talking about that, starts to grow wealth. And I think what I've realized now is the most key important, especially like, with cryptocurrency and these high interest yield accounts, is letting your money work for you. And that's really important of how can you get your money to work for you. And that's, in having these, having this access, that's so important in regards to that. So when you make these decisions and you start realizing, when you talk to wealthy people, or you read about wealthy people, purchasing land, purchasing, rent houses, purchasing assets that grow over time, you start to realize, okay, that asset's earning, it's like that house in Frisco in the 80s, right? When you bought it for $6,000 and now it's worth $200,000. You realize that. And so you start making these decisions of how these long-term assets are going to be in play.
Adam, since the beginning of our conversation, I love the theme has really been about growth and learning. And so this is the part of our show where we're going to ask you a couple questions that we ask every single guest that comes onto the show. And quite honestly, from here to when we wrap up is my favorite part of all of our episodes, because it gives us the opportunity to learn more from you, and then for Sammy and I to be able to share what we learned from this entire conversation. But the first question that I'm going to ask, in terms of what Sammy and I kind of phrase as our growth questions. So what first enters your mind, Adam, when I ask you the following question? What is a favorite actionable tip, method, or routine, or even a lesson learned regarding self-development and growth that you can share with our audience? And that can be something that you learned from TeacherTube, or even just your growth and what you're doing now with crypto.
And I'll say this, is that I didn't realize I had it until my kids came home and they were teaching it at school, and they was having that growth mindset. And it's very important to have that, because you're going to have, and I use this term all the time, and it goes back to the kind of having that growth mindset, is that you're going to have people, you're going to have consumers, you're going to have producers. And I think you guys heard me say this, is that you're going to have people who consume paychecks, and then you're going to have people who produce paychecks. And you got to have both. You've got to have both. But a lot of people with that growth mindset, are typically those producers, just because they don't see the failure. It's positive, right? I failed. It's that baseball player that goes 1 for 3. How do I get better, right? Yeah. don't just give up. Don't just give up. It's really, it's called growth mind. It's called mindset for a reason. And so it's a foundational mindset that you got to have. Yeah. And no matter how hard or bad it may be, is that you got to go back to that and continuing learning, whatever situation that you're in, you just continue to learn. So I think to answer your question, that would be my long form answer there.
So just real quick, Sammy, I was just going to add that, and we've said this on the show before, one of my favorite mantras is I win or I learn. Mm-hmm. And man, that hits exactly what you said, Adam. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The next question we have is a little bit of spin on a classic question. And, back in the day, or many times you hear, if you could go back in time 10 years and tell yourself some advice, what would you tell yourself? Well, we've taken that question and we've turned it around. Mm-hmm. If you can go forward 10 years and tell yourself something, what would you tell yourself? So imagine building a time capsule, right? We're putting together advice. We're going to bury it. We're going to come back in 10 years. What would you tell yourself 10 years from now?
It's a great question. And it's a hard question because it's easy what I would do in 2 years in the past, invest into Bitcoin, right?
Hold Dogecoin.
And hold my Dogecoin along the way. What would I tell myself in the future is, and I keep repeating, myself, but, always continue to learn.
Yeah.
Continue to learn and, never take that away. I'll be honest with you, when again, going back to TeacherTube, I learned a lot of my coding through Quora and through GitHub, and in those communities, and I just continue to learn. Taught myself how to play the guitar online, learning how to guitar tabs, and so I think that continuation to learn, because if you have that mindset to continue to learn, it's going to be easier for you to adapt. Mm-hmm. And what did we just talk about? Blockbuster, don't become that Blockbuster, become that Netflix. Yeah. And so that would be my constant, that I think in any era that you would, that could be your main constant, in regards to that.
I love it. Great advice. All right, Greg, take us home.
Well, Adam, we alluded to this earlier, but this is really, I think, the funnest part of the show for Sammy and I. Mm-hmm. So and it's also the hardest and without a doubt the most difficult. But after this entire conversation, Sammy and I are going to share back to you 3 takeaways that we got from this conversation. Mm-hmm. And so, Sammy, do you want to ping pong back and forth?
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, how about I'm going to let you take lead off, so I'll let you start.
All right. So the first thing I think resonates with me so much so that I literally, before we started filming this today, I was having this conversation with my wife, literally in the kitchen before I walked in here to hit record, which was, you mentioned about having a purpose. And the context that I'm using there is, we were talking about some of the different financial, financial situations we want to find ourselves in later on in life, like retirement, what does that look like, et cetera, et cetera. So we kind of have that conversation. But again, it goes back to your why. It goes back to the purpose. So it's like having that purpose. And mine has always been to help others. It's been in my life forever. So I just think that that's great. I think everyone from business to personal have a purpose.
Well, Sammy, thank you, because that was definitely one that I was going to hit upon myself. So I will cross that one off my list, but I will take I'll take the opportunity to say that yes, and I challenge everybody listening right now. The company that you work for most likely has a mission statement. I challenge you to have a personal mission statement. Spend some time thinking what that looks like, what it sounds like, share it with others, but write it down, adopt it, and live it. I'm going to start with this one. Adam, you said it's all going to be digital. And you elaborated after that, but that's where I stopped off, where I wrote down on my note. And you're exactly right. The future is faster than we think. We all have an opportunity to sit back and let the future take place, or we can be actively engaged. And this conversation has really challenged me to actually put some effort and initiative into learning about whether it's blockchain, cryptocurrency, but there's a lot of other things that are happening that are evolving very quickly. And it's inspired me, hey, let's put some effort into really educating myself on what's coming so I can make good decisions in the future.
Secondly, on that point, it's kind of very similar. Know your mission, but something that I've struggled with in the past and that I don't mind telling people is like learning how to use it. Right. So that, and I think that part really resonated with me, is like, you know, your mission, but you have to understand and have to learn how to utilize that information. I take great notes. Sometimes I forget how to use those notes. Like I'm off doing something, like, oh, you know what? I need to go back to my notes. I go back to my notes. There's the answer right there. So again, learn how to use it.
I love this thing that you said earlier, Adam, and it had kind of a double meaning when you mentioned stay in your lane, bro. And I love the fact that you actually had a brother that you were actually having that conversation with, but it's so true. So we all have strengths and weaknesses. So identify, learn where your strengths are, really pour into those, learn where your weaknesses are, surround yourself with other people that can help you in those areas. And ultimately, wherever that competitive advantage, whatever it might be that you really excel at, really focus on that. And to just expand on that, I love the analogy you talked about when you kept saying, man, we're a video company. Like, let's come back to what we're really good at. Let's try some different things. Let's innovate, but let's stick with our lane. And, you know, just even what Sammy and I are doing with the pursuit of growth, that really hit home to me in terms of what are we really good at? Let's focus on putting the majority of our energy there.
And my last one tonight is something that you said earlier. It's an analogy that I love, but about going 1 for 3. You know, it like a baseball analogy, right? You hit one, you strike out 2 other times. If you do that every single time, you're in the Hall of Fame, right? So,
yes.
But I think the way that you phrased it was be prepared to go 1 for 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so think that long term, but be prepared to have those failures and then come out of those there with successes.
You know, the last takeaway that I have really comes back to something that both Adam, you and Sammy talked about. And so this is kind of in our whole cryptocurrency conversation. And just one example that you used was Coinbase. And it's a place where you can go and get free videos and information and education, and then you can actually earn money going through the process. And so I can tell you that one of my next steps is going to be to set up an account and to actually put a plan together to start doing that. And so what a great takeaway that's actionable that I can actually implement this upcoming week. So that was a very big takeaway, and I'm excited about it.
Well, Greg, as always, I think you and I can probably go on for days and days and days about the information that we take from every single person out here, but we are going to give Adam some time back because I know we've spent a lot of his just soaking up knowledge. Adam, I think that we've just barely cracked the surface on like cryptocurrency, and you did more than what I expected. And the reason I say that is it's not more information than I expected. You actually took it a different way. You allowed us to see a different side of understanding the bigger picture of cryptocurrency versus when coming in, like we were looking for some of those actionable tips and some of those actionable things. You took us, or at least for me, right? You allowed me to take that step back to say, wow, there is that bigger picture investment strategy, understanding that. So I value that so heavily. So I would love to invite you back onto the show here soon and say, like, let's do that again. Let's think about where you are now and what else are you learning now? Because in that growth mindset, that continuous learning, I think you have a lot to provide. So we'd love to have you back on the show and do this.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you guys. And of course, you know, again, you know, blockchain being in my world, there is so much opportunity here for everybody. And in regards to who are interested in this space, that, you know, I want to tell everybody about it. Go learn from it, because there is going to be abundance of opportunity with this. Again, you know, talk about the early internet days. This is one of those technologies that comes by every, 10, 20 years, and so just understanding it, being engaged with it and things like that, huge advocate. It's funny, as we talk about business, especially on the mining side, it's became my side hustle, after, beyond TeacherTube, or, with A Smith Media and things like that. But this mining, that was my side hustle. is, it's now projected in the next couple of months to be kind of my real hustle. So it's kind of that growth over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so, again, I leave this, with both of you guys and even your audience, is that, it's something new. And I think this is a great opportunity for everyone to go read that book, go read that article, go watch the YouTube videos, just to understand it. And, a lot of this was new to me, again, back in November, but I just wanted to absorb it in boot camp. And when I get on things, guys, I mean, it's just like I'm fully focused. I mean, I don't talk to my wife. I say hi, bye to my kids, between that 9 to 5, after 5, sure. But I mean, it's just focus, it's just laser focus. And that's where, now it's at the breathing point of, okay, I understand it, but I want to tackle this.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a great opportunity. And some people will say, hey, you know what, this is going to be too hard. Yeah, so be it. It's not your cup of tea. But some people are going to say, oh my gosh, it does this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
What about, oh my gosh, this is it. Let's do this. And, this is a global opportunity too, as well. And what I mean by that is that, the technology is, you can do a quick search on blockchain and how to create a coin, and it's right there with you. You know what I mean? So you can actually go create your own. So there's an abundance of, information and things like that. So, but don't be afraid to go learn either. Take that risk to go learn, and, take those calculated risks and see what happens.
Adam, tell people how they can get a hold of you for your different type of ventures, be it learning more about crypto or, using your media company, A. Smith Media. Tell us how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So I am going to create an umbrella. I have an umbrella company that I will have all my assets, but I do have, A. Smith Media, which we primarily do social media and consulting. I have the Advanced Crypto Chain Solutions, which is the new mining company. And then I have Ally XR, which we do small projects with AR and VR, which I'm also fascinated in that realm too as well. So I kind of juggle those two, all three of them together. But I keep it small, I keep them nimble, and I just enjoy what I get to do. You get to wake up and, those are the three things that I love to do. I love to help companies. I love blockchain. I love crypto. I love all that. And then I also love new technology like AR and VR, so it's a great model. But you can always reach me at asmith.media. You can always go to, and it's asmith.media, not .com. But it is asmith.media. You can always reach out to me there. There's always a form there. Feel free to email me, even your audience. I'm happy to give my email away. It's adam@asmith.media. Feel free to email me anytime. If you have any questions on crypto, or anything like that, feel free to do so. I think there's going to be more to come in regards to that, and we can all learn together, and that's the great part. So.
For sure.
Yeah, well, with the whole pursuit of growth and what Sammy and I are doing with this organization, this movement, this community, of the 11 focus areas of life that we really passionately talk about, 3 of those areas are love and service, financial literacy, and learning. And Adam, you just summarized real quickly how important those 3 of the 11 areas really, really are. And so for people that want to learn more about the pursuit of growth, you can go to our website, which is livetpg.com or thepursuitofgrowth.com. You can check out our weekly blog. You can see this show. You can obviously see other episodes of the Pursuit of Growth show. You can buy our book, The Pursuit of Growth. And of course, we've got links to all of our social media where we'll be posting content, actionable tips, and things that you can use in your day-to-day life. But Adam, one more time, wow, what an amazing show. So much information to be able to really take and move forward with. And thank you so much.
No, absolutely. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. And I get passionate about this, and it is so new. But I love it. I love it. It's kind of a little spark of energy,
It shows. It really shows.
In the step,
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, everyone, enjoy your evening, enjoy your day. We hope you connect with us on our website, and we look forward to seeing you soon on the Pursuit of Growth show.
Yes, live TPG.
All right.
Peace.